Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is exactly 9:14 a.m. South African time. We're now going to be crossing over, and I think it is Germany. We're going to be crossing over to the co-founder of the Free Rohingya Coalition, and that is San Lwin, to talk about the situation in Myanmar. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me here today in this program.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, because you are the co-founder of the Free Rohingya Coalition. And if people like you don't give voice to the voiceless people, the Rohingya, then I think the world will be none the wiser as to the plight of those helpless people in a very hopeless situation. So as we speak this morning, is your voice being heard? Is your foundation's voice being heard by people like the United Nations and other countries and other governments to perhaps lessen the burdens, the very heavy burden on the Rohingya people?
Well, our plight, the genocide is, our people have been suffering from this genocidal campaign of the Burmese military for more than 40 years now.
Sure.
We have done a lot of campaign. We have the advocacy group. So the UN and all the government across the world, they know very well that these people are facing genocide. And recently, just about 2 months ago, the United States government has determined the situation, that the crime committed by the Burmese military as the genocide and crime against humanity. So there are also other UN report from the fact-finding mission. Now they have got another mechanism, and also various other government. There is the case at the International Court of Justice filed by the Gambia, and also it was intervened by the Canada and the Netherlands. So there is a case at the International Criminal Court as well. So the world is well known about this, our people, but the problem is there is no solution yet. They have been talking about our people, what they are facing, how the situation is dire, of what they needed, but there's no real action at all. Comparing to the Ukraine as of now, how they have been taking the action for the legal matter, and for the humanitarian support, and for their the fighting support, everything, there is no gap at all. If we get such support from the international, we have been in peace for many years now. Unfortunately, we have got the lip service, not the practical support. That is the reason we continue in suffering. Now you might heard about the 17 people die in the sea, and about 32 people were detained by the local authority, and the remaining people are missing. We heard about that there are about 90 people on board, including the women and the children. They are fleeing to Malaysia. uh, the reason they are fleeing is the genocide is ongoing in Rakhine State. They cannot move, they cannot work for their livelihood. There is no future at all. So human trafficking are always convincing them that if you go to the Malaysia, you will get the nice job, you will have the handsome salary, your life will be much better than here. You will have freedom of movement. So the people were convinced. Although in the past year, thousands of people drawn into the sea and died there. They still convinced, what the human trafficker are saying, because they thought if they can survive this journey, at least they will have the better future. So the situation hasn't improved. It is not going to improve unless there is an intervention from the international community.
Okay, you have spoken about the United Nations and the international community only paying lip service to the Rohingya situation. You also refer to the Ukraine war. And in response to those comments from you, I once again state the fact that sadly it proves that black lives, black and brown lives don't matter. Ukraine has had unprecedented support from all European countries all around the world simply because they are blonde, white skinned, and blue eyed. And that is a sad reality in the world today. Black lives don't matter. So I think this is going to be a long, hard battle for Black people all around the world. That's the one statement. Then let me ask you this question. The Rohingya people are making these very desperate journeys to Malaysia. And the case in point you spoke about is the 17 lives that were lost in these desperate journeys in very unsuitable boats. So these are the sad risks that people are so desperate that they take these risks at the cost of losing their lives and losing their families. But what is the situation like once, hopefully, we pray they do reach Malaysia safely? Is the Malaysian government welcoming them with open arms, or do they find themselves back in a vicious loop of not being wanted in that country?
Well, unlike here now, Ukrainian are open to any European country, and also if they travel to Mexico, they can enter the U.S., or the Canada, everywhere. All the country are open for them. Even like Turkey, are helping them. So Rohingya situation is completely opposite. And even if they reached to the Malaysia, they were detained by the Malaysian authority. Later, if the UNHCR intervene, they release. There are a lot of people are still inside the detention center. Of course, this is a big burden for the Malaysia, but the people are looking for the safety and better future since they fled the persecution. And Malaysia is already hosting more than 150,000 Rohingya refugee. It has been since more than 40 years, more than 30 years. So we can also blame them, but still we want the better treatment from the Malaysian government and the Malaysian people. There are also a lot of hate speech against the Rohingya going on since for the past year. They don't want that this Rohingya at all. The public opinion is we don't want this refugee at all. So the situation is not really better in Malaysia. The people has to face that this the detention. Luckily, if they are released, they can they cannot walk as well if they have the UNHCR recognition card. At least they can find a job, but still this is the very rare opportunity. Some of them they got, but at least they are surviving. At least there is no one every night raiding their house, like Myanmar, a little bit better than Myanmar. Let me say that they have no any privilege like the here in Europe, like a refugee status. So here the refugee, at least they got support from the government and the society. But in Malaysia, completely different. They have to find a way to survive by themselves, and always need to be care about the the immigration rate, and this all the thing. Even if they have the UNHCR card, they can be detained and later released.
So, what do you believe then is the way forward for the Rohingya people? Where and how should foreign governments become more active? Do they have the political will to help the Rohingya people? I think not.
Yeah. The most important is their political will, so now since last year February 1st, the situation has changed in Myanmar. There is the military coup, still the people are struggling to get back the civilian power. There are also armed revolution. So unlike any other country in ASEAN, especially in this country, Malaysia is very supportive to the Myanmar cause. At least the Malaysia is blocking this Myanmar military, so they have this political will. That is why, unlike any other the remaining 8 country, they are talking against the military junta, but other are not talking. So this is one simple example. But this is just that they are talking, but there is no practical support. So they should have the will to practically support, I mean, the people revolution or the people movement. And for the Rohingya as well, the Rohingya, you know if they wait for the international community intervention, I think it will take century, or maybe after century, all the generation will live in the refugee camp. There won't be any solution. So in the practical step, what the Rohingya need, they know that. And also there, in Myanmar, armed revolution is very much needed. If you have a armed revolution group, you have the power, and then you will be taken to the table to discuss. So for the Rohingya also, frankly, I am speaking, they need something like that to protect themselves. So there is no protection now. There is the Arkan army now. They are the Rakhine Buddhist group, and there is the military. So we have to afraid both groups, because we are completely vulnerable. And if they don't, if the international community doesn't want to support this, at least that the international community come there and create a zone that protect the Rohingya. But still, this is not going to happen. So every day, what I am talking to my people, especially the youth, nobody will liberate us. We will only liberate ourselves. Meanwhile, we will get the humanitarian support, but that also very limited nowadays. The donor, most of the Western donor, they are focusing the Ukraine, and all the things, only like. Uh, I'm not against the Ukrainian people. I really sympathize
You feel
this
for them.
way.
You feel for
Yeah,
them.
I really
Nai-
feel for them. Yeah,
right.
but still,
Nailin,
yeah.
right. I need to ask you one or two questions before we wrap up. And the one important thing is, how is it that you communicate? You're in Europe, permanently based in Europe. What is the communication like between yourself and the Rohingya people? Are there bodies on the ground in Myanmar that have easy access to communicate with you?
Well, I have been working for more than 20 years now, so I am well connected with the people uh, inside Myanmar and also in Bangladeshi refugee camp. So I myself visited quite a few times to the refugee camp, so I'm well connected. And in Myanmar, of course, before 2015, there was no internet. I mean, especially in the Rohingya area. So since the 2015, they are using the internet. So we need to use the secure messaging app, like the Signal or WhatsApp. But Signal is much better this day. So we cannot use the telephone line because we are afraid that they will tap the telephone and the record. So in Bangladeshi camp also, of course, that the network is very poor, very difficult to communicate. Still, there are some places that the network are properly working. So when the people want to talk, they go there and send the message. We talk. So this way we are sharing all the information. I keep connected with the people living in both country, and also with the diaspora community. I am well connected. So uh, this way, we are communicating. At least there are some obstacles, but still we manage to get rid of all those obstacles.
Okay, finally, I'm not in agreement with the Home Secretary of the UK, Priti Patel. She has suggested that, and I'm sure you're very familiar with the story, that black and brown people, illegal immigrants, be repatriated to Rwanda. They've made a deal with the Rwandan government to resettle uh, illegal immigrants, but only brown and black immigrants to Rwanda. Do you think that I don't agree with it, but do you think that that might be an option for the Rohingya people?
Well, well, I don't agree with it at all. First of all, there is no illegal, there is no illegal for the refugee whoever fled the persecution. They are looking for the safety. We can call them illegal. So, and sending them to the Rwanda and process the asylum there. This is completely, I want to say this is nonsense. So you keep the other the skin people in the country. She herself, her parent fled from the Uganda and take refuge in UK. And so I think she forgot her past life. Even though she was born in the UK, she should remember that her parent plight. So I don't support this at all. uh, because in UK, in the past year, all the asylum application process there, people have been had the chance to rebuild their life there. So now they are sending this human cargo to Rwanda, for the people will will we don't know how long they have to stay, maybe 8 9 years or 10 years. Maybe the people will get upset, they will do suicide, or they will leave from that country. There are a lot of problems. Same thing, Australia has done in the past, keep the refugee in Nauru, and the Papua New Guinea, and also the Crispin Island. There were a lot of Rohingya suffer. I know, I have communicated with them. This is like the I mean, not physical and not physically, but
I'm
psychologically torturing
Nathan.
the people.
All right, Nathan. And the reason I asked the question is, even though I don't agree with it, but would Rwanda not be a better option than for the Rohingya to take these desperate journeys on those boats and possibly lose their lives? Um, I'm kind of just wondering.
Well, this is the same thing. Yeah, the Rohingya, they take the risky journey, risky boat to the Malaysia. They drown in the middle of the sea and they die there. These people, sending to the Rwanda, they will, this is psychologically torturing. They will feel there, and you don't need to kill them with the weapon. Slowly they will suffer, mentally, physically. At the end, what will happen is the same thing. Their body will be alive, but their mind, everything will be dead. Same thing.
Naisan, that's where we have to leave it. Lovely talking to you. Inshallah, the plight of the Rohingya people does get better. We do hope and pray that the international community wakes up to this tragedy that is unfolding as far as the Rohingya people are concerned. You keep up that fight. And fly that flag as high as you can, and inshallah, things can and will change for them. Thank you for being with us. Till
Inshallah,
the next
inshallah.
time, as always,
Yeah,
salamu
Jazakallah.
alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair.
It is San Lwin. He is the co-founder of the Free Rohingya Coalition. He's based in Germany and he's been fighting the cause of the Rohingya people for the past 20 years. Still to come on the show, we're going to be talking to Dr. Mita regarding monkeypox. So let's hear what it's all about.